Hey everybody, welcome to Talk, Teach, Play. My name is Aaron Locks. I'm the CEO and founder of the National Academy of Athletics, and joining me today is Hall of Famer Rick Barry. I am so excited to have you with me, Rick, and thanks for making the time. It looks like you came out of some fishing to come up and hang out with us for a few minutes.
Well, I was fishing last week down in Mexico and had an amazing time. Caught some incredible bass. I mean, it was like beyond any expectation I may have had. I always try not to have expectations, and you're always hoping for the best. But yeah, it was awesome. Absolutely awesome. Caught the biggest bass I've ever caught in my life, 10.5 pounds. So I got my bucket list. I always wanted to get a double digit bass. So I was able to do that. So it was great. And I hope everybody that's listening in, that everybody and their families are healthy and making the best of a very difficult situation, and wish everybody blessed holiday season that's coming up. And I can't imagine that 2021 is not going to be a better year for everybody after what
Right.
we've been.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. We go way back. I don't even know if you necessarily remember or not, but I actually won a free throw contest at College of Marin when I was 9 years old, which allowed me to be a camper at your camp at Sonoma State when you were playing with the Warriors. That's when we first got to meet. And what a just great journey. And then obviously, going through and being around involved in the game for so many years, and then directing your fantasy camp and your help with my kids, and the connection has just been tremendous. So I'm excited to share a little bit of kind of an inside story with you about you've been such a great influence on me and insight on kids and basketball, but really about kids in general. I've got some questions that I think our audience really wants to hear. And I don't know if people realize, but having five boys that basically got to play basketball and get paid, what a pretty amazing journey. Is there anybody else that's done that? Right? I mean,
I don't think so. I think it's a Guinness record. I don't know if there's ever been any father that's been a professional athlete to have five sons and have them all have Division I college scholarships, and all of them wind up playing professional basketball. It's remarkable. I was hoping that one of them would be good enough to play, and I've had the good fortune of having all five of them do that. And I'm sure those people who are listening, you have kids who are playing. Trust me, if they go on and they continue to play, it's such a joy to sit and watch them play. In fact, I'm kind of begging my son Canyon, who's 26 now and is on the 3x3 national team that's going to go and play in the Olympic qualifying tournament after having won the gold medal last year in the World Games. It's the only gold medal the USA never won in basketball in three. It was in 3x3
wow.
World Cup. And so now they're going to have the Olympics. And so he has a chance to possibly be on that Olympic team. So I'm very excited for him in that regard. Of course, he's still playing stuff and hoping to do something again with the G League, and praying and that somebody opens up their eyes and realizes that he's good enough to play in the NBA and actually give
Yeah.
him that chance. I mean, right now I look at the Warriors. The Warriors have nobody that other than Steph right now with Clay out that's really a really proficient, 40% 3-point shooter. My
Right.
son's career is basically, around a 40% 3-point shooter and can play the game. And I just don't understand that. I really don't. But anyway, let's talk about some stuff that's more of
Yeah,
interest.
no, well, no, it's interesting to me, and I know because I've been able to follow all the way through. But I mean, if you think about it, from Scooter, John, Brent, Drew, and now Canyon, right? It's been like a 30-year span of when they started when they were kids to play. And so how does that happen? Obviously, your people I'm sure they know, but maybe they don't realize that you're the only one to lead the NCAA, ABA, and NBA in scoring, right? So that's another record. Let's put it there. But you're more than that, because you're such a teacher of the game and such a purist in terms of the right way to do it. How do you do that from a 30-year span with these kids? In terms of, I can remember when I was growing up, when I was younger, there wasn't as many opportunities to get trained and all these different things. So how do you do it? I mean, I'm just blown away. Like, how do you do that with the kids? And obviously it was different from back then than it is now.
Well, I think what you have to do as a parent is that you need to expose your children to as many different activities as possible and see where they have an interest. If they show an interest in sports, expose them to various sports, not just one, not one that you want them to play and you force them to do that. Give them the opportunity, and when they're younger, to participate in the sports they show an interest in. But the most important thing is get them training of the proper fundamentals in whatever that sport or activity happens to be. If it happens to be music, get them a good teacher in for the instrument that they're trying to play. That's the critical element, because it all comes down to building a foundation of fundamentals to build on. The smaller the foundation, you can only go so high on a small foundation. So you want to put a big foundation down there so that you can put the biggest possible building on that foundation. And if they're blessed with natural talent and abilities and they put the time and effort in, they'll have a chance to maximize their full potential. But then let them choose what it is that they want. And even so, let them play other sports. Don't just throw them into one sport and make them play one sport from the time they're a little kid. Let them play a lot of different sports. And you can see where they have an affinity towards it, where they have some ability. And then as they get a little older and they still have that enjoyment and more lessons, then you get them to somebody who's a little bit more advanced. And that's how you let them grow into it. But you have to let them make the decision. Don't force it down their throat.
I love that. You know, right now, we're seeing that about 60% of kids that sign up for a sport after about 2 seasons, they quit. And it's too much pressure to be successful and win games. But I'm wondering, you know, again, Scooter's my age. So when Scooter and John were coming up, was it neighborhood play? Like what was it like for them in the experience? Because I know obviously with Canyon, it's obviously different nowadays. Boy, he's probably being pulled in a million different directions. And when he was coming up, you know, play travel and play this and play that. I'm sure you're really on top of that. But what would you say the biggest difference between when Scooter, John, maybe Brent, whatnot, early on coming on to now? Like what do you see as the big difference in the two?
Well, they have so much of this traveling teams. I mean, kids are traveling at, you know, in 3rd and 4th grades. I mean, what are you kidding me? I mean, this is insane. I mean, and they haven't playing too much. I mean, you go to these tournaments, even nowadays, Canyon would go to a tournament, you go on a Friday, they get there Friday night, they'll play 1, they might even play 2 games Friday night. And they'll play 3 and maybe 4 games on Saturday, and then a couple more games on Sunday. Their bodies aren't ready to do that. I think they're breaking a lot of these kids down, to be honest with you. And of course, the biggest problem is that they don't get a chance to practice a lot, and there's not a lot of teaching going on. That's not everybody, but I'm not a big fan of AAU basketball. I just did a podcast with Michael Cooper from the Lakers, who's doing a little show, and he felt the same way. I mean, too much is not always good. I mean, too much of something. So I just think you have to be very cautious of that with your kids. And the most important thing is to get them the proper teaching of the fundamentals. And people say, what do you do? Well, I said, teach them the fundamentals. And then when you think you've got it, focus a little bit more on those fundamentals again. And then when you think they really have it, then just go over those fundamentals one more time. You can't emphasize enough how critical it is to have the fundamental principles. There are guys playing in the NBA today who are there on sheer athleticism. And they're unbelievable players, but they'll never be as good as they should be because they don't have a true understanding of the proper way to play the game and have those fundamental principles and concepts that allow them to utilize that talent in the best way possible. Right. And it really breaks my heart sometimes to see some of these kids. In the minor leagues, when I did some coaching, it broke my heart to see some of these kids who had such incredible potential, but weren't taught how to play the game.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's really sad to see that kind of opportunity wasted. So focus on the fundamentals, make sure they're having fun. Don't force them to do things. Just let them choose what they want to do and then support them every way possible.
You know, I remember when Mason was maybe 6 or 7 and you pulled him aside. What's that? Yeah, you were right. But I remember it was funny because, you know, you're known as a shooter and a scorer. And I think people don't realize how good of a passer you were, but we could get into that as well. But interesting, you started with Mason with his feet. And again, you know, as a purist for the game and you know, my training working for Coach Wooden and all the things that I've done through my life, it was really cool to see someone that had played at the level you did. And you're like, hold on a second, we're going to start with your feet. And I just thought it just reinforced so much for me, because I think the challenge is I see those athletes that are so athletic, so gifted, but they don't have proper footwork, right? They don't have proper balance. How can you play the game if you don't have that, right?
Well, you can play it. I mean, I'll give you the perfect example of story of that was David Robinson. Okay, the Admiral.
Really? Okay.
David Robinson, when he came, and my wife, Lena, as you know, ran women's basketball for USA Basketball for many years, for 12 years. Yeah. And so I saw David when he came in, and he was there, and Lute Olson and Bobby Cremens and Jerry Prim, I think, were the guys were coaches. And they took him and they helped him probably so much. He was already playing right at the Naval Academy.
Yeah.
His footwork was so horrible, really, really bad. And they really worked and worked and worked with him. And I think that was a big factor in him being able to become the player that he was, because he did not have those fundamentals. So here's a guy that was already into the Naval Academy through high school,
Wow.
who had horrible footwork. I mean,
Yeah.
that should have been taught to him when he first started playing.
Yeah.
There's no telling how good he might have been in college had he learned how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then we get to the fundamentals. Let's talk about shooting for a second. Obviously, you are obviously known because of your underhand free throw, but more so, I look at all of your boys can shoot the ball, right? They can all shoot. And it's funny because I think Canyon is actually, he's got a beautiful stroke watching him shoot it. But what would you say are 3 tips, without maybe getting too technical, but how do you develop, because confidence is really big pieces. So you have to have the fundamentals, and then you have to have the confidence. Otherwise, it's not going to work, right? So
yeah, but it doesn't help if you're practicing incorrect fundamentals. That's the thing.
Good point.
So that's the same thing with shooting. It's all about the fundamentals. And, I've done things talking about shooting, did it all the time at the fantasy camps.
Yeah.
And you've heard my lecture all the time. There's 5 critical fundamentals in shooting that you have to do right, and then a few other things. And basically, you have to be holding the ball properly in order to be able to do it.
Right.
And so it's putting your hand out like this and letting the ball sit on it with your hand spread out in a comfortable position so that it's not tense and tight.
Yeah.
And then sit the ball on it. Then you take it and you turn it over so it's like this and it doesn't fall out of your hand. If you didn't have your wrist cocked properly, it's going to roll out of your hand. If for the younger kids, you don't have to worry about it. But bigger guys let their big hands go and they grab the ball and they use your thumb. Your thumb is one of your worst enemies in learning how to shoot a basketball, and your offhand.
Okay.
Because your thumb pushes it up into your fingertips. You don't have it laying back so that it rolls up your hand and off your fingertips for a good feel and touch. And so 1 is there. 2, turn it over so that the back of your hand's parallel to the floor. 3 is this part of your arm has to be straight with the elbow pointing straight down to the court.
Right.
And if not doing that, if your elbow goes out, you're in big trouble, because you can't possibly be a good shooter. LeBron James had that problem when he first came in the league. You're going across the path of the basket as you shoot the ball. And that means you're going to be missing left and right. If you are really good and great shooters, rarely miss left or right.
Right.
They miss short and long.
Yeah.
And so that's 3. 4 is you shoot it up to the basket, not at the basket, because then it's a flat shot and you make your target smaller. And 5 is finish and follow through, because in every sport that you play, when you start some kind of a motion or action, you have to finish that action. So those are the 5 things. And then the other hand gets put on the ball in a nice position, but it has nothing to do with shooting, because once I get to here, that hand comes off. It's all back to here. And I tell people, practice doing this and shooting just doing this.
That's right.
All by one-handed until you get a feel for it. And then bend at the waist, bend at the knees. The further back you go, the more you bend your knees. And you don't ever want to feel like you're doing this with your arm. You're pushing it. It's got to be a nice, smooth, fluid motion.
When you told Mia have a passive thumb on her shooting hand, it changed everything she did. Just that little bit. And again, it was great coming from you rather than me, because she didn't want to listen to Dad.
No, fathers don't know anything.
So speaking of fathers, so how do you get the boys again because you're playing? So when they were coming up, obviously there were probably good coaches that worked with them as you're coming through, right? You worked with them, gave them
I gave them the fundamentals first, and I took them to my camps, and they came to camps, and they got to hear. They probably could tell. They could probably give my shooting demonstration verbatim, but yeah. So that's what I did. I took them to the camps and gave them the fundamentals, and then it was up to them to put the time and the effort into it. And it's really kind of amazing what happens. I've seen a lot of things over the years with my different boys and the coaches they played for, and some of the stuff is just appalling what happens. I mean, it's amazing how coaches can screw things up. And I had one coach with Canyon. He went and did something so freaking good. It was great. He's really good with moving without the basketball. I was really good at doing that myself. And he reads the floor and sees things. And he made a cut, and I happened to came into practice to pick him up one time, and it was on the side out of the way. And coaches, Canyon, what are you doing? Run the play. And I'm going, oh my God, you got to be freaking kidding me. I mean, a play is not designed to be run according to the way it's put on a piece of paper or drawn on the chalkboard or on the board that you have. You take what the defense gives you. If your man is out of a lazy position, that's the first thing you do is you go to the basket. I mean, I couldn't believe that this coach told him that. And then another one, The guy threw a high pass. He's in the corner. He jumped up in the air and made a great save and whipped it. And it went right through and right past the center's, and the center was open. And the coach yelled, "What are you doing? Grab the ball and bring it back down." I mean, he made such an instinctive play. He should have said something to his teammates saying, "Why were you not expecting a pass?"
Right.
You always should be expecting a pass when you're playing basketball, no matter what's happened. Even if I told my teammates, when I go up for a shot, don't ever lose sight of me until I've shot the ball.
Right. Absolutely.
Because I'm liable to throw it to you when I'm up, and I did that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and you throw it right by people's ears, and the guy gets the layup. And so, and he made a great play, and here he gets criticized by his coach. And so afterwards, when I said, "Son, look, what you made in that play and that pass, if that happens again, you do exactly what you did." Yeah. I said, "That's the right play to make."
Yeah.
And so it's just incredible how so many of these coaches really, they ruin kids a lot of times. They actually do, because they don't understand the game and they're not teaching them the right things to do. And so they ingrain these horrible habits in them. And then the easiest thing in the world to do is to develop a bad habit. The hardest thing is to break it.
Yeah.
So just make sure, if you're not going to do it, you're sending the kids to something, send them to someone who really understands the game and is going to teach them the fundamentals of the game. Then as they get older and they get better, you can start to refine it, and you can start to teach them a little more advanced stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things to learn about the game, but it's not a complicated game like other sports. I mean, It's not that complicated. It's a pretty basic game, but you have to understand what the fundamentals are in order to be able to execute them properly.
At times I've seen a lot of coaches, again, particularly with the travel stuff, a lot of it, and not that all the travel is bad, but a lot of it, at times they're so focused on the win that they end up overcoaching and under teaching it. And I think, especially as the kids are younger, going back to your whole premise on the fundamentals, it's so important that they learn how to play the game the right way. But for me, I mean, I've watched your boys, all of them. I've watched them all play. The basketball IQ they have is off the charts, because let's see, okay, they got the athleticism, right? And they can shoot the ball, but their basketball IQ, in my opinion, is what made the difference between them playing, you know, at a lower level to that. So how do you get that in there? Because again, a coach can help you with that, but ultimately they've got to get that. It's experiential learning, right?
Well, here's the thing, is that it's that you can teach them a certain number of things. I mean, as far as the fundamentals and all that go, and they can refine those and get them to the point where they're really good at it. But the one thing you can't teach is a feel for the game. See, that's the differentiation. Every one of my boys had what I didn't give them. They had it. It was natural. It was something that they were blessed with. And that's the difference between the chance of a guy who's a great player as opposed to a good player. Okay. The great players have that natural feel for the game. I remember Canyon. He was 4th grade, first game he's ever playing in, YMCA. He's running down the court. His teammate threw a ball to him, and as the ball came, he just took the ball and just tipped it forward to his teammate who was running down the court. Now, my wife and I, we never told him what to do in a situation like that. So when we both looked at each other and we said, he's got it. He has that natural feel for the game. Instinctively, he knew the best thing to do, not catch it like most guys would do and start to dribble. He just took it and changed the direction of the pass and forwarded it onto his teammate. And I knew he had it then. And it's the same thing with my other boys. All of my boys had that kind of feel. I remember John one time when I went to see him play at De La Salle High School.
Okay.
And so I came to watch him play, and he didn't have a particularly great game, didn't shoot it all that well, but he came across the middle one time and he went to go and make a pass like this across the lane because the guy was open there. And as he did it, you can see my hands here, he went like this, took this hand off and threw the ball that way to a teammate for a layup. Wow. Now, I said, John, I said, you won the game, so it doesn't matter. If you played poorly and you lost, I can see you being upset. I said, yeah, of course you're not happy. I said, but did you see some of the plays you made? And I pointed at that. I said, John, it was worth the trip for me to come here to see that pass.
Yeah.
That was a pass. I couldn't teach somebody to do that.
Right.
And that's the kind of stuff that I look for when I look for players in scouting. And I wish more scouts would do that because, boy, I don't know what they're looking at when they draft some of these people.
Sometimes.
Because they have so many flaws in their game. But that's the kind of stuff that you look for. And then, hey, doesn't mean you can't become a really good player without it. Right. But you'll never become a great player if you don't have that.
Yeah, you have that feel. So a lot of the families that come through the through the National Academy of Athletics, you know, we really focus on the fundamentals and helping the kids fall in love with the game. Our talk, teach, play system is basically no more than 3 minutes explanation, then 6 minutes of drills and skills, and then 6 minutes of play with no direction correct. Just let them play and have fun with it, right? So as a parent, I'm wondering, a lot of parents that run it, that we get emails about and questions that come through. What do you recommend? Is there the right kind of experience, whether it be camps or clinics? I mean, have you thought about that in terms of, because again, like let's talk about Canyon, because the other boys are obviously different experience. It was a while back, but with Canyon, obviously, was a lot of it with you? Did you have him do personal training? I mean, how does that?
It was with me and also his mother. His mother was obviously was a mother. His mother was she was the only woman to have her jersey retired at her alma mater. She was an All-American academic, All-American player, and a great player and smart also. And she worked on the fundamentals and all of that stuff. And so it was just a constant input of fundamentals and the correction. You know, and what you're doing is great, and also, but you also have to correct them. I mean, here's the problem: if you go and you do it, and sometimes it's a little boring and a little annoying at the beginning, probably for the kids and stuff. But if you don't tell them when they're doing something wrong, they don't know it.
Right.
So you got to get back and just the fundamentals. You know, I mean, you talk about it, but then go through the drills. And then even though they want to play and they want to do something, you still have to stop them and let them know, okay, no, Billy, no, or, you know, you should use some fancy names like they have now. And Billy is like pretty common. But anyway, you stop it. Like when I was coaching in the minor leagues, when we scrimmaged, I would, every time I told the other Clifford who was with me, you know, if I had other coaches, if you see someone do something fundamentally wrong that they shouldn't be doing, blow the whistle. And I said, when I blow the whistle, you stop where you are. I blow the whistle, I stop. And if I blew the whistle, I might say, Aaron, what just happened? And I want to see if you recognized what just happened, the mistake that you may have made or even one of your teammates made, so that you have this understanding of how the game should be played.
Right. And
so it's really important that it gets ingrained in them to be the point where all of the fundamental things become second nature and they're not going to make those mistakes. Right. And now you can really focus on the refinement of the game and fine tuning your game and getting more advanced stuff to take your game to the new levels.
Right. And that's through repetition, right? I mean, I remember Sugar Ray Leonard was talking about the first time he decided to retire. And he said he saw the opening and then he hit him and he knew he had to retire. And Howard Cosell said, what do you mean? He says, you see, I saw the opening and then I hit him. In the old days, my fist would have already been there. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. You've done it so many times the correct way that you watch Steph for the Warriors, right? He's done in practice it so many times the right way that no matter what happens, he's ready to make these things happen. It doesn't have to
think about those things. You know, they just happen instantaneously. Your instantaneous reaction to stuff. And that's the whole thing, is that I have a film that I show people when I try to show some coaches. I send it up. I show them a play that he made when he was playing overseas. I said, look, if you see a kid make this, look at this play. And if you see a kid make this play, how could you not say, oh my God, this kid, I want this kid playing for me.
Right.
He playing stuff. He saw the play. He anticipated defensively, made a great steal, started up the court, took one dribble, started the next dribble to advance it up the court. A defender was coming right in his face. I mean, big time fast. He took it off the dribble. I mean, after just really one dribble and threw a pass full court, almost full court, over the head of a defender to his teammate for a perfect catch and lay it. Now, and I just saw some stuff with Steph. Steph does that kind of stuff. Yeah. He gets the ball, he's got it, boom, all of a sudden it's going down the floor. It's just this instantaneous recognition. You can't teach that.
Right.
You cannot teach that. And so,
but a lot of it has to come from, like you said, though, is the foundation. You build a house, you have to have a solid foundation, right? Because if you don't have jump stops and pivots and good footwork, then it doesn't matter all the other stuff, because you can call for travel and you're going to be off balance anyway.
Well, if he didn't understand catching and starting up the floor immediately, and then you get it and go, but as he didn't go, he's seeing everything.
Right.
He saw everything, and and it's the instantaneous recognition that you have. And what can I do? And you have to say, okay, well, if I take another dribble, no, it's just reacting to the situation, because it all happens and it gets programmed and boom, it happens.
Right.
That's what you can't teach.
And realistically, we can say whatever we want to say about coaches or anybody, but it's the experiential learning of the kids going through it and practicing. I mean, I remember sitting there at my schoolyard, shooting, saying, I'm Rick Barry, and this is what I'm doing. And over and over and over again, I had a passion for that. Your kids obviously developed passion for that at a young age because they wouldn't have put the time in to do that if they didn't have that passion, right?
Yeah, you want to have, I tell kids, you want to find something you have a passion for, regardless of whatever it is. I mean, just to have an enjoyable life. And I try to point it out to them. I said, just think about this. I love playing basketball. I had a great passion for it. I was fortunate enough to have a father who was a semi-pro player and coach who drilled the fundamentals into me. That was the whole thing. You're playing, you make a fundamental mistake, you were on the bench.
Okay.
You were on the bench, okay? Because that you weren't thinking you did, and you tell you why, but then you go back in. And intelligent people, I tell the kids, don't be afraid of making mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. You're a human being, but you just don't want to keep making them over and over again, okay? You minimize the mistakes that you make, and you cut back on the times that you do the same mistake,
Right.
so that you get to the point that you know how to play the game. And what I loved about Canyon when I watched him play, even now when I watch him play, if he does something wrong, I can see how mad he is, and he knows he did something wrong.
Yeah.
There's guys that do stuff and do it, and they have no clue that they just did a bonehead thing.
Yeah, right.
And it's a big deal to him. I mean, and that really would annoy him, and it would just make me feel so proud of being able to watch it. But you know, that's what it is. You just have to do it over and over and over again until it becomes second nature to you, and then you can enjoy the game a lot more, and you can be taught more refined things. Because if you have good footwork and somebody gets you who's a really good teacher and knows the game, they can give you more advanced stuff because your footwork is good, and you're going to be able to pick it up like that, and you're going to be able to do those things. That's why I have a very difficult time. For me, like my wife does a lot of stuff and teaches a lot of kids because she has the patience to do it.
Yeah.
I need to have somebody who has talent to do it. I mean, I have to take somebody who already has skills, and I enjoy working with them to take them to the new level and show them some things that maybe they weren't aware of, to help their game advance substantially. Yeah. But to be able to stay and work with the fundamentals over and over and over again, I don't have the patience to do that.
Not anymore. Yeah. Well, so more refinement and that stuff is. All right. So last question, I kind of want to go forward with you, and I really appreciate your time here today, man. This has been great. I guess is just the thought process, looking back on it. How much can you explain the joy of the journey that for you and the kids in the game of basketball across it? Because I know what it's been like for my kids, and they played lots of sports and going forward. But just, you know, every time I talk to you, the passion you bring out, it doesn't matter which boy, which time, whatever, there's a passion that's there. So talk a little bit about that, about the journey for watching your kids go through what they've gone through and where it's been. Because you probably, I mean, people don't realize that's huge. I don't know anybody, like we said at the start, that has 5 boys that literally playing professional at the levels they have. Is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it really is remarkable. And as I said, it's been a great joy for me. That's why I'm trying to convince Kenya to hopefully stay with it. Because as I said, I'm asking you to do it only because I just love watching you play so much. And I had the good fortune of being able to see him play more than all my other boys, because back then I had my career going on.
Yeah.
And then, you know, unfortunately got a divorce. And so trying to get to see him, I always try to make it a point to get to see him a little bit. But with Canyon, I was able to be there. I mean, I was there every season. My wife and I went and stayed for the wintertime when he was playing ball and got to see most of his games. Then, of course, now with streaming and all of the stuff that they have going on, when he was overseas to go and play, I got to see his games when he was playing in Europe and playing in China. I mean, I was like, thought I died and went to heaven.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
I got a chance to watch him play. I mean, even my wife and I said, though, sometimes maybe it might have been better if we didn't have the knowledge we have of the game. Because when we're watching him, we can see everything that he's doing correctly or doing incorrectly. And instead of just being one of the parents, just, oh, look at him. Look at my boy. He's out there playing. This is so much fun. I just love watching him. No, we're over there because we see, okay, what are you doing, son? What the heck? You know, so sometimes it's a little better maybe to not have the kind of knowledge that we have about the game. But it was a joy. I mean, I had every one of them was ball boys. I mean, think about that. I got to take my kids to work with me, even though it's not work. But my job was to go and play. And like I say, it wasn't a job. It was a joy for me because I was getting paid to do what I love to do. That's what I tell kids. Hey, if you have a passion, you learn how to do it. You learn the fundamentals. You get really good at it. Somebody is paying you to do what you love to do. That's not work.
Right. Yeah.
That's not work. You want to be somebody who gets up in the morning and say, oh, my God, I got to go to school. I got to go to work today. No, I said, hey, I get to go play basketball today, and I'm going to get paid to do this. This is unbelievable. And so I brought them to work. I mean, I'd come home. They'd have to take a nap, get ready to go, have the pregame meal, and and then they come and they have their little ball boy uniforms on, and we drive and go to the ball games. And at one point, I had all 4 of my older boys who were ball boys at the same time. You know, Scooter.
Wow.
And in fact, the cute story the people might enjoy is I'm playing in, we're playing in, it was a game, it was an important game. I don't remember if it was a playoff game or not, but it's the 4th quarter, late in the game, and Al Adels calls a timeout.
Yeah.
We're sitting in the huddle listening to what he's got to say, and I'm getting a jerk on the back of my jersey, and I'm trying to ignore it. Finally, it's a hard jerk. I look at it, it's Brent, who was working our bench. John and Drew were working at the visitors' bench.
Right.
I go, well, what do you want? He says, hey, Dad, have you got $1 for a hot dog? And I'll get I said, not now. So he starts crying, and he walks back over to Scooter, who was underneath the basket, who was going to be there to sweep the floors of the and stuff. And Scooter has his arm around, and there was a picture that somebody took, and it wound up in the paper, of Scooter consoling Brent, who's got tears because his ogre father wouldn't give his son $1 for a hot dog
In the middle of an NBA game.
No, at a very critical point in an NBA game. Yeah.
Okay, that's funny. Oh boy. Well, I always appreciate the time with you. I wonder if someone wanted information about maybe following your podcast or information, where would
Warriors 24? Just go to the podcast. It's Warriors 24. You can just check out, Apple Podcast or whatever. Warriors 24. I do it with Cyrus Satches, who actually was a producer of mine when I did my shows at KNBR Radio. He was one of the producers, and he's become a journalist and stuff himself. And we have a good time. We have a good time doing it. Unfortunately, we started doing it, and we had the Warriors who went from the penthouse to the outhouse last season.
Yeah.
And they'll be a lot better this year, but with Clay going down, it was so sad, because with Clay healthy, and if Wiseman turns out to be the player that he looks like he has the potential of becoming, I was kind of impressed when I saw him. He's got a lot going for him. Now, whether or not he adjusts to the NBA game, not having had a lot of experience playing, and usually big guys, it takes them a little bit longer. Hopefully that's not going to be the case, because for them to be a playoff team and to cause some problems, I don't think they have a chance of winning a championship, but you never know, because in our case, hell, it happened and nobody expected it. But if he really comes along and some of these other guys play the way that they can play, they can be a team to be reckoned with, and I'm hoping that's going to be the case.
Good. It'll be exciting. Well, I appreciate your time. Anybody that's interested in catching up more with Talk, Teach, Play, just click and you can subscribe at the bottom here, or check out nationalacademyofathletics.com.
Let me just say something to people here and everything. You could be, I've known Aaron for quite a long time right now, and he's absolutely awesome. He's great with the programs that he runs. He does a lot of wonderful things, and he does embody what I believe in, which is to teach the fundamentals of the game, teach it the right way, and really does have a passion and a love for what he's doing and working with kids. So you couldn't ask for a better person to be involved in his programs.
Appreciate it, Rick. Thanks very much. Thanks for your time, and happy holidays to you and to the family. And we'll be in touch. Appreciate you.
God bless.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you.